Super Mario 64. Originally released in 1996 as a launch title for the Nintendo 64, and is still available to play today on the Nintendo Switch if you are willing to pay $50 a year for the privilege. Mario 64 is a 3D platformer collect-a-thon, meaning you run and jump around in 3D, and your goal is to collect stars. While it is not the first 3D platformer, it is usually the game people think of, because it truly crystallized exactly how the genre should play. It did this by forcing analog control on you, and giving you some control over the camera, which weirdly is explained to be an actual guy carrying a camera in this game, which is introduced to you right at the beginning and then you never hear from him again. This was a very different kind of game than Mario games that had come before it, as the goal wasn't to just reach the end of a bunch of stages. No. Instead, you had a limited number of stages that had multiple goals to accomplish in each stage. Each stage had 6 things to do, and each of these tasks would reward you with 1 star. It tells you when you start the stage what the particular goal is, and when you accomplish the goal, you get your star and are kicked out of the stage. And each of the 15 levels will have slight variations to it, depending on which star you're trying to get in which stage. Some stars can of course be gotten out of order, but that's up to the player to discover. There are a total of 120 stars, 7 in each level, 6 from accomplishing the various goals of the stages, and a 7th in each world by finding 100 coins, which is very easy in some levels, and punishingly frustrating in others. There are also 15 additional stars that are hidden around the hub world, that takes the form of Princess Peach's castle. The only other thing to mention about the gameplay is the boss fights. You fight Bowser 3 times. Each time you fight him, the arena's a little smaller. There's not much more variation. Mario 64 is a game that was very ahead of its time, as even today, the controls are somewhat intuitive to use, which is quite unusual for a game of this vintage. That is because the controls for this game are the basis for the controls of every 3D platformer that would come after this game. Also, many of the design decisions made would become hallmarks of this style of game. For example, the small number of worlds that are slightly reconfigured was done in this game because of the limitations of the Nintendo 64's cartridges. But 3D platformers continue to do this to this very day, even though storage space is no longer a problem. There is no practical concern forcing you to do this. Though the limited number of levels here certainly did not make them bland or run together. There is great variety in the levels. Pleasant, sunny green areas, deserts, lava hellscapes, even a world that plays shenanigans with your character's size, and several other options as well, making each level both stand out and be quite memorable when reflecting on this game, which may have been a launch title for the Nintendo 64, but it remains one of the best games available on the platform. But is it still worth your time today? Well, if the Virtual Console was still around, I would say absolutely yes, because on Wii and Wii U, Mario 64 only came in at $9.99. But as today, your only option to play Mario 64 is to pay a $50 a year subscription, I'm not inclined to say yes. And no, it's not the only game you get with that subscription, but $50 a year seems awful steep to play Nintendo 64 games to me, even as good as some of them are. So yes, this is an amazing game that really should be played by every gamer, but at the current price you need to pay, I simply cannot recommend it. Please do like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends.